Good morning.
Dr. Nick Salida, the Commissioner of SWAKAM, also present today. Secretary of SWAKAM, Dr. Chia, also present. Together, my colleagues from the Complaints Division, they are here today. Maybe, Dato, you can introduce who's on your side, who's present today?
Yes, on our side, Ambika Srinivasan, the doctors who will be presenting the memorandum are as follows: Dr. Kamal, Dr. Hadi, Dr. Fauzi, and Dr. Umar, all on behalf of the contract doctors. With us also is Audi Ali, who is assisting the doctors. If I may just do a very quick 1-minute introduction. Thank you so much to the commissioners for meeting on an urgent basis. It is an urgent issue. It relates to our healthcare system, which is at breaking point at this time, and it concerns the terms and conditions of key frontliners, that is our healthcare professionals, who are themselves in this pandemic facing unequal and unfair treatment by the employers, that is the government of Malaysia. This pandemic has only heightened their problem and the inequalities that have existed for many years. So without further ado, I think we should hear directly from the doctors, and I would therefore invite them to summarize their memorandum and to hand it over officially to the Honorable Commissioners. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dato.
Right, thank you to the commissioners from SWAKAM. Thank you, Dr. Ambika, for this meeting with SWAKAM. So today we will just like to hand over our memorandum to SWAKAM in terms of the contract doctors. So what we are facing currently is that we are contract doctors and we have been oppressed by the government, which is our employees as well. We are unable to fulfill our rights to proceed into specialty program and everything. We are unable to get hazard leave and other leaves as per our permanent colleagues. So what we are doing today, we are proposing that SWAKAM endorse our movement and help us in terms of fighting for our rights. So in terms of our memorandum, there are two key important things that we would like to highlight. The first and foremost is for all the contract doctors to be absorbed as permanent posts with KWSP. And number two, for a better transparent criteria in terms of choosing contract doctors to become into permanent doctors. So I think these are the two things. Why permanent doctors? It is because the permanency is the key for doctors to proceed into the career, is a key for doctors to become specializing into other fields. So without a permanent post, we are unable to get Hadiah Latihan Persekutuan, which is the grant for us to proceed into master's program. So without permanent posts, we are unable to fulfill our needs and our job to serve the public of Malaysia. So I do think it is very important that this issue is fight and this issue is settled by the government itself. So I think in terms of other related issues, actually, if from the contract itself, we are liable to be terminated should we proceed with doing this hartal, as the government has stated in a clause in the contract, if I'm not mistaken, under Section 7, which stated that we can be terminated without any notice. But then I believe this is our right to fight and to stand up the need for the public interest. I believe this healthcare issue is just not about the contract the doctors issue, but I solely believe this is the issue for the public of Malaysia. So I do hope that with this hartal movement, we can give a strong message to the government to help us and also to settle this issue once and for all, because it has been dwelling since 2016. So with that, I end my speech. Thank you.
If I may just add a couple of things to that. I think what the contract doctors are trying to say is that they are like temporary employees, and all they get is yearly extension. You know, extension as long as the government decides. And that is unacceptable, treating them like they're on probation all the time. And that has been going on for years with many of the contract doctors. But as I said earlier, this pandemic, the contract doctors are doing the same work, and they are exhausted, like many of our frontliners are. They are pushed to the brink, and yet they are unable to get security of tenure. And the other more important point than security of tenure is that there is no pathway for their progress as doctors. They cannot specialize, they cannot do the necessary training to take them forward. And they are being deprived of that very important opportunity. So I think that is a very key factor for them. They're not just talking about money, etc., but it's just being treated so badly. That's one. Number two, they have a concern. They have announced a hartal on the 26th, which is on Monday. And in the meantime, there is ongoing intimidation of many contract doctors because they are speaking up, because they dare to say what is troubling them. And that is of concern. And if they want to exercise their rights on Monday, it is in the hope that there will be no intimidation. Of course, it would be wonderful if their problems were resolved before then, but it's unlikely. And we also invite Suhakam, if it is possible, to perhaps monitor the situation, whether remotely or in some way, to ensure that there's no infringement of the human rights of the doctors. Thank you. If there's any questions from the commissioners, please direct them to the doctors, because they will be able to explain the details better, I think.
Good. Simon?
Yes, Dato'.
At this stage, do you want me to respond, or you are going to say something else here at this point?
I believe Dato' Ambiga said there will be more doctors speaking. Right? Maybe we should hear from all of them first.
Shall we? Okay. Let's hear from the other doctors.
So, the other doctors would like to speak?
Or perhaps no, I think, Simon, I think I will speak at this point. I want to raise some questions, then doctors can answer specifically to this question.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay. Firstly, a good morning to everyone again. And I want to thank Dato' Ambiga for reaching out on behalf of the doctors. We had a very late night discussion the other night, and I'm glad we managed to put this meeting together, although at short notice, because I think we fully understand the importance of the issues at hand. Going straight into the matter, I think doctors, please be reassured, and the lawyers in this listening into this discussion as well, is that as far as Suhakam is concerned, we have always and still do recognize the right to health, healthcare, access to health, and welfare of the health providers. This is a fundamental right. It is a basic human right, and we always respect this right. And our track record will show that over the years, we have always been working with the medical, with MOH and the medical personnel to always try to improve things. And so when it comes to this problem faced now by the group of what do you call the temporary doctors or the contract doctors, I think we have to really fully understand what the issues are. Now, I see here that other than calling yourselves as contract doctors, you don't have a formal group. Are you formally structured as a group? Of course, I don't think you have a union to start with. Is there a particular group? Is there a particular name? Although your memorandum heading says Memorandum Gerakan #Hartal Doctor Contract. And hartal, as I understand it, means boycott or a walkout or a mogok, a strike. Am I right? Yeah. And I was just telling my colleagues just now that actually I thought hartal is a Malay word. It's not. It's actually derived from Hindi. So I think our Indian counterparts must be leading this. India is something that we can take a page of the history. So The other thing, of course, is that I want to look at it from two angles, if I may, and I'm sure Dato' Amiga will appreciate this. One is from the legal aspect, and then the other is from the human rights aspect. Now, as far as the legal aspect is concerned, the fact that you are contract doctors imply and would tell me that you have all joined in the service as contract doctors and you have agreed to terms of contract. Okay, so the government have obviously want to hold you guys to the terms, and they will say there's no room for variation of any terms. So if you're talking about basic law, that seems to be the position, is a matter of contract. But I think what is of interest is that right now we have COVID-19, a pandemic. This is something really unforeseen. And this is where, Amiga, you will agree with me, the principles of force majeure and legitimate expectation and a whole lot, all that will come in because there's such a big change. There's such a big change in the circumstances that for the government not to, or rather to ignore any request for a review of terms, I think they are being very short-sighted. Then they are not looking after this very big segment of frontliners. But having said all that, I just, as a matter of background, I just like to know how many doctors are actually involved in as contract doctors, and how many are going to take part in this Hatal on Monday. And that this brings me now to the second point, which is about human rights. Now, as I say just now, that we most certainly respect and support the principle of access to health. And access to health is not just access to health by a patient, somebody who is sick, but most certainly it looks after people who are providing that health care. People like your good selves and the nurses and so on. So on our part, we can most certainly come out and reiterate those principles. And then the next question I would like to ask is that what do you think is the best thing that we can do to help your cause? And I would put a small caveat on this, in that you will note that there are only two commissioners who are present this morning, Dr. Nick and myself. We have altogether 9 commissioners, and so it will be incumbent on us to immediately after today's session to actually talk to our other commissioners to arrive at a common platform. Yeah, so maybe you can answer some of these questions. I read your memorandum. It's a 2-pager. It's very direct, very clear. And yes, and as you say, if you are facing clause 7 or section 7 of your contract, that if you do Hatal, and if the government thinks that it is, sad to say, but if they think this is a moment to come down hard on doctors who are on Hatal, then they might say this is a breach of the terms, and it comes back to contract law. Yeah, and then there will be termination and all that, and that really will affect the general public because, as I say, I'm not sure the numbers that are involved. Perhaps you can fill in some of those gaps, Dr. Mustafa or Dr. Audi or whoever is listening in. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dato'. If I may, to respond to your question. So from the data that we collected, we have roughly about 1,500 to 2,000 doctors who are willing to join the strike. But I believe there are still many more to come because of the threats they receive from the government, from the superiors. That is why they chose not to fill up our data form. So I do believe that it's about 80 to 90% of the doctors who are willing to join because this is about their future. So
what are the total numbers, Dr. Mustafa? Total numbers of contract doctors presently?
23,000.
Okay.
Now, and the ones who have,
what is the percentage overall of all doctors, permanent doctors and contract doctors? What's the total number?
We don't have the total number as per now because this is the data that we received from Dr. Adham Baba's reply letter on the 23rd of June. He stated that there's 23,000 doctors and only 3.4% were absorbed into permanent posts.
But this 23,000, what's your percentage then of the total number of doctors in the country?
I'm sorry, Dato', but for that, I'm not sure.
Okay, all right. All right, yes.
So in terms of the contract, I do believe because we were forced to sign the contract as per the terms because if we do not sign the contract, we cannot proceed with the housemanship program. Housemanship program takes about 2+1. So if we do not sign the contract, so we cannot enter into the housemanship program, which is the key requirement for us to get full registration under the MMC. So I do believe there is some discrepancy in the contract.
Dr. Mustafa, pausing there.
Yep.
If my memory serves me right, this compulsory service has not only extends to the health service, but I think even for engineers and architects at one time, they all had to do what they call national service, minimum 2 years before you can get what you call registered with the board and so on. So is this the same thing that we are talking about, that all qualified, graduating doctors must serve, drop it down, 2 years?
2 years, at least you have to finish the housemanship training program within 2 years.
Within 2 years, and then after your housemanship, what happens?
Then we become medical officer, we get our full registration, then we have to serve the government for another 2 years, as per for the compulsory service under the Medical Act of 1971.
Oh, so 2 years houseman and 2 years compulsory service.
Yep.
So this, after the housemanship and this 2 years compulsory service, are you a contract doctor or what?
So far, as per government policy, for now, we are still contract doctors with the view of extension.
Wow, actually, Dato' Amiga, you heard that? This is a very interesting legal scenario.
It is.
Very interesting legal.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
because,
in fact, yes, go ahead. Sorry.
Because if they have to do 2 years housemanship to qualify as an MO, then I would say, look, I've got no choice. I had to go through this, and then I have to serve another 2 years compulsory. So your contract is not at arm's length at all.
Yes.
Isn't it?
They have no choice. But where the difference after that is, some of these contract doctors are put on yearly contracts or 2 yearly contracts or whatever it is. It was something that was introduced, I think 2016, if I'm not mistaken. You can correct me if I'm wrong. The problem with that is it's temporary, Honorable Commissioners. So which means that they can be terminated or not renewed at any time. That's the problem. They have worse terms and conditions than permanent doctors. They cannot get into specialization programs, so there's no pathway. So they've been working under these terrible conditions, which many people didn't know about for a long time. But the problem is exacerbated by the pandemic, of course. Yes. And in fact, what's happening now is, if we keep looking at the press, almost on a daily basis, contract workers are giving 24-hour notices and stopping. So in other words, it's impinging and impacting the whole healthcare system of the country, and it's not their fault. They have actually been negotiating and trying to get the government to hear them out, but they're just not being taken seriously. If we don't take frontliners seriously at this time, then who do we take seriously? They are key. So So what we are looking for to Suhakam, because I'll assist the doctors a little bit here on the legal side, which is this. One is the issue of the hartal. And of course, that is something all Suhakam can do is observe or whatever it is. But ultimately, an inquiry into these issues of the terms and conditions and how it impacts the right to access to healthcare, which is a human right. And ultimately, it's something that affects the public, everyone, all of us, not just the contract doctors. So the way in which they're running this, is this something that accords with human rights standards of access to healthcare? I think that inquiry will come, of course, after Monday, but that's what we are hoping Suhakam will do, is to look into this issue for the contract doctors. So I leave it now to other of the doctors who may want to jump in. I don't know if I got all the technical issues, language right. Yeah.
Sorry, Commissioner, if I may, just add some more from the points that you mentioned just now. So in terms of our movement, we are not registered under any association or NGO. We are just merely a movement comprising of about 20 to 30 contract doctors who are the core team who are bringing this motion forward and pushing the government so that they come up with a solution. So we plan to do a hartal, which is equivalent to a massive walkout at the major hospitals. So we do plan at state hospitals, we will be staging a walkout at 11 a.m., holding our placards, and we do hope the media is there. And we do hope Suhakam will be there also to observe and also to help out in terms of the legal aspects and so forth. And we do hope the media is there to cover our story because we want to send a strong message to the government. Maybe Commissioner will be asking why we aren't parallel with MMA. We do have engaged MMA, which is the Association for Medical Doctors. But we think at this point of time, MMA is not doing their best. And I understand that because MMA itself, they are comprised of permanent doctors. They have a lot of things to lose because they are probably the head of department, the consultant of a department. So if they were to join a strike, it will cause more implications to their career itself. But for us, this is about our future. That is why for us, it's do or die. And anyhow, and in any circumstances, we will get terminated. Yes.
Dr. Mustafa, just a quick question at this stage. Are all contract doctors members of MMA?
No.
It's voluntary, is it?
Yeah, it's voluntary.
So how many
MMA is not not a union.
It's an association, medical association, but they look into matters of conduct and behavior, discipline, isn't it?
It's MMC.
That's MMC.
There's a council.
Yep.
There's a council.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
But for the board, how many contract doctors are, sorry, not the board, MMA. For how many contract doctors are members of MMA? Any idea?
I'm not sure because most of the contract doctors, some of them aren't aware that we do have MMA to begin with.
All right. Okay.
May I ask the other doctors, Dr. Hadi, would you like to just jump in there and say how
maybe Dr. Fauzi or Dr. Umar?
Or Dr. Fauzi, Dr. Umar, please speak for your colleagues, and so that we have an understanding of what you all face.
Hi, I'm Dr. Umar. To be honest, I'm not so what we call it, knowing about all the legal sides. Is all we depend much on Mustafa Kamal or Dr. Mustafa Kamal. But honestly, I want to say I'm still working under KKM as a contract. I can say I almost burn out, and the reality what we shown in the social media is true. All the 24-hour notice to resign and all the burnout thing, all the things that happens in the hospitals, healthcare facilities around Malaysia, all of it are real. So I'm joining this movement because I think we need to speak the truth and tell the reality to all Malaysians, especially because this not regarding our story ourselves, is regarding all Malaysians and our nations. If this can be resolved, because we have given to MMA to settle with superior, with all the ministries for 5 years, and we see the progress is quite slow. So I myself, to be honest, I'm forced to do this for the sake of my friends, all other doctors. That's all what I can say from my behalf.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. May I speak on my behalf? Recently, our ministry have told us that if we want to do a specialization, we have to take a parallel pathway. So for me, I've taken my parallel pathway, MRCS Part 1. Also other international courses such as CRIPS in medical terms, CRIPS and everything. So basically, I'm the point to get the specialization, I'm already halfway there. Unfortunately, due to these contract circumstances, there is no chance for me to enter the systems. Due to in the Malaysia system, for the specialization, we need to have a permanent post so that they can consider us, because they need to employ us. So in terms of contract, let's say they terminate us by the end of this year. So there is no point of me taking parallel pathway since I'm a contract doctor and they can put me entering the system. So that's.
Can I just ask a question about a selection process? What it appears to me is that MOH will go through a selection process to offer permanent positions to contract doctors. So can I ask, how often does it happen in a year, and how many are eventually taken in on a permanent basis?
So regarding the permanent post, so there is a many batch of a contract officer from 2016 till 2025. I think more than 20 batch. I think per year is maybe 5 batch or 6 batch per year. So the permanent, each batch consists of around 300 to 400 doctors. So for the permanent post, recently they only offered for the first 3 batch, which is December 2016, January 2017, and May 2017. That's the only batch, which I think consists of a total of around 500 doctors. With and then the selection criteria for the permanent, so far there is none given. There is no like specific, like in case of LNP or there's external paper, or there's nothing. It's just they just offer it like that with no why there's no criteria. Why are we extended? Why they are giving a permanent post? Yeah.
Oh, isn't there as part of the criteria minimum years of service, minimum qualifications, or whether you've gone on for any specialty and all that?
No,
they don't consider that.
No specific criteria was given, and then there's none given at the first place.
Right.
And could you add if one of the doctors could assist? Some of you actually have been on contract 5 years, yes, or something like that. Can you explain what length some of you have been on this contract situation? Dr. Hadi, maybe you can.
I'm sorry again. I'm sorry.
In other words, some of you have had a contract for just 1 year. Some of you have been on contract for several years. Am I right? If they keep extending. Maybe Dr. Mustafa, you can answer that.
Yes, actually, I do believe Dr. Hardy is the best person to answer the question because he was the pioneer batch, the first batch of doctor contract. But if I may just to add on, maybe Dr. Hardy will continue his speech. Actually, from 2016, usually they will be given a 3-year contract because housemanship, in some postings, we have to do 6 postings. So per posting is about 4 months, but sometimes people do get extended because of various reasons. So that is why the government proposed a 3-year contract, means 2 years housemanship plus 1 year in cases where the houseman get extended in terms of their posting and everything. Housemanship training is a basis, it's a training process whereby once they complete the housemanship training, therefore they can only get their full registration. But in certain cases, we cannot become into permanent post because as per lampiran G in the syarat pelantikan contract, it mentioned in the section 15, tawaran pelantikan secara tetap adalah tertakluk kepada kekosongan jawatan dan pegawai yang memenuhi syarat-syarat berikut. Dia ada 5 syarat. Yang pertama, menawarkan latihan siswadah dengan jayanya mengikut tempoh yang ditetapkan dan memenuhi syarat di perenggan 12, diperakui oleh ketua jabatan telah mencapai tahap kompetensi, mencapai prestasi yang baik, telah diberi sijil pendaftaran penuh oleh MMC. So for me, this criteria is very, very, very vague. And if you ask me, I have fulfilled all the criteria, but why am I still contract? So these are the things that we don't understand. Why is this happening? Plus the discrepancy in terms of the government, SPA or JPA, giving out permanent posts to these batches. Because I think about 2-3 weeks ago, batch May 2017 were offered about 300 permanent posts. But then there are still contract doctors in December 2016 batch who haven't been offered permanent posts. So I do not understand why is this happening. But probably maybe Dr. Hardy can elaborate further.
Can I also ask, as contract doctors, is your salary, is your a salary the same as permanent doctors? Obviously, you're not pensionable. Are you entitled to EPF or any other benefits?
Yeah, we're entitled to BF. So regarding for our salary, so we started with UD 41. So after recently they upgraded to UD 43. But the scheme is still the same. The salary is still the same. But let's get the point that it's not about the salary here, because if you are talking about money, it's not about the money, it's about our future.
Okay.
And then we still have an EPF.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other benefits? Sorry.
I think also has.
If I may speak, okay. Doctor.
May I add for this one?
Yes, please, Doctor.
Okay. Regarding for the contract, there's a few differences. For example, for the contract doctors, there's a specific like cuti critical that we cannot get. For example, for those in radiology, for those in psychiatric, actually for the annual leave for these two posting, they got like 2 weeks extra for the like the hazard punya cuti. However, for those in contract, they are not eligible for this one. And the second thing is, for example, if someone who are contract doctors who get sick, for example, someone who get COVID or cancer that require them to get more than 90 days MC. So for those in contract, they are not eligible for this one. What happened is for those who get sick and then got MC more than 90 days, usually the admin will propose for them to resign and then to get back into the system after they recovered, because in the contract it specifically say for those who in contract cannot get leave more than 90 days straight. So this is like the main one of the main things that are can like differentiate from the permanents and the contract doctors.
Right. Can I, we have heard there's quite a few doctors. Can I ask my fellow commissioner, Dr. Nick, whether you have any comments at this point in
Hi,
time?
Dr. Ma, thank you very much. And I don't have a document with me, so I'm quite in struggle to understand the issue and the capacity now that the contract doctors are having, and also the challenge that we could see in the future. So one of the important objectives I think we have to achieve is that to deliver a very strong message to government that this is a very serious concern. And with the help of YB Ambiga as well, I do believe that we can, if not all, we can solve few issues for contract doctors. Yeah, and then all employees are also under the ambit of Employment Act 1955 as well. So speaking on the legal protection value, I believe that the issue must be put as a priority by Suhakam, and this is the time where government has to take extra care to all medical officers and also frontliners in Malaysia. So yeah, Datuk Mah, I think we have to deliver this strong message as soon as possible.
Yes, yeah. I think.
But the challenge, a bit challenge for us is to understand the real issue and the background facing by all these contract doctors as well, because we don't want to have wrong message in understanding issues. We don't want to, have lack of understanding of the real issue and challenges facing by the medical doctors. Thank you.
Thank you. But Dr. Nick, you remember, I'm sorry, I was saying earlier about the legal aspect and then the human rights aspect. I think one really good point to consider is that, or rather we ask ourselves, hey, if you're on contract, you're not happy with the terms, why don't you just leave? I mean, that's one option. But quite obviously, the way they entered into the contracts here is very different from just say an ordinary employment of a staff, say in you advertise and somebody comes in for interview, you take the person on. But here, obviously, you have to do your 2 years housemanship. You have to do your 2 years compulsory service. Then only you are placed on this contract. I suppose doctors could still have said, look, I don't want to be on contract.
We see this, Dr. Ma, as indirect discrimination. Then it is even more dangerous than direct discrimination that everybody will recognize and understand easily. So indirect discrimination needs clarification and explanation from human rights experts. So I believe that if we understand the issue clearly, we can come up with very good findings of how human rights element could be tackled, and we have many more issues anyway as compared to what has been raised up by our doctors here. Maybe because we see it from the human rights lens, so we understand more on how the human beings is discriminated.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So going back to the doctors, Dr. Mustafa, your Hakal is a walkout on 26. What time is it scheduled for? If you are going,
we are planning for we are planning for a walkout at 11 a.m. 11 a.m. 26th of July at most of the state and big hospitals.
At general hospital.
We will be doing in HKL, H-Star, Sungai Buloh, Selayang, and then in the northern states, Penang, Perlis, Hospital Tuanku Fauziah, and in Kedah Hospital Sultan Bahia, in Terengganu is Hospital Kuala Terengganu. I think we will send a list of hospitals that we will be doing a nationwide strike.
So this will be throughout the country,
Yep, throughout the country.
It's a very big move. But what about SOPs and you don't want the police to come out and then say, not because of the subject matter itself of terms of contract and so on and so on. They will not look into that. They will say, oh, you have now a group of doctors who are in breach of SOP, and then they will go for participants, and they forget about what is that? They usually say they will go for the messenger and forget about the message. So is there a risk to that?
Yeah, we do understand there is a risk under Akta Penyakit Berjangkit, which this allow us to be gathered around without SOP. So we will be trying to tell the participants to adhere to the SOP, wear a mask and everything, be at 1 meter distance, but at the same time doing this massive walkout and go home immediately. But in certain cases, let's say if the patient care needs urgent treatment or needs urgent attention, we will definitely recommend the doctors to come back to work and to serve the public and also serve the nation.
And how long is this Hatal meant to be that morning? Is it for a little while and then you all go back to work, or you stop altogether?
We stop altogether at 11 a.m. But in certain cases, like example, Hospital Sungai Buloh, most likely they will have to come back around 2 to 3 p.m. But that is subject to consider later on.
So it's just for the day, Dr. Mustafa?
Yeah, just for the day.
And if I may add, we are arranging also with our superior and our permanent colleagues. So our most priorities still the patient's care. We wouldn't jeopardize patient's care. We will do it as best as we can, so that the most important is the message delivered to the government, which this matter must be considered seriously now.
If I may add to my colleague's statement, we did engage with our consultant and specialist regarding hartal, and we did send a letter to the state pengarah Jabatan Kesihatan Negeri, pengarah pusat daerah kesihatan, that we will be doing this hartal. So I think yesterday we have already sent our letter to them stating that we will move on with hartal on the 26th, and we have advised them to make the necessary adjustments in regards to hartal on the 26th of July.
And I think, if I might add, that if there are any threats or intimidation between now and your hartal, you should collect all that information and we will forward it to Suhakam after the hartal on Monday. So
Okay, I think, is there anything else that you wish to highlight, doctors? Is there anything else? Because if not, for the moment, I can think of a few things that can be done. Most certainly, as I mentioned earlier, I will have to get back to my other commissioners and have a discussion. The other, of course, is that whether we will be there as observers as at your hartal, if it goes on, then you please inform us which is the place to go and so on. And then, of course, in the meantime, whether a press statement should be issued. So I think the immediate action would be press statement. Please don't get me wrong, but it's all subject to confirmation from my colleagues. I'm only speaking right now for myself. So press statement, presence at the hartal on the 26th. And then at a much later point, I suppose the point that Dato' Ambiga, you mentioned, whether an inquiry, a public inquiry can be held on this, because it is an important matter. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else you wish to add? My colleagues from Suhakam, Dr. Chia and Simon, is there anything you wish to highlight and advise?
Datuk Ma, I just want to ask Dr. Mustafa Kamal or anyone here, was there any engagement with the DG of Labour before this?
We did engage with QPEX, but DG of Labour kita tak pernah engage lagi because we didn't have the contacts. We did email to them, but we haven't get any reply yet.
Okay. And the obvious differences between contract doctors and also permanent doctors, among others, the job scope, the right to leave, annual leave, I mean, is it? And also all the benefits, pension as well, and right to get equal access to be trained, to attend training, is it?
Yep.
Yeah, it is a very obvious discrimination, I guess, in terms of your commitment. Put aside whether you are temporary or a contract doctor, but commitment is still, we expect the same from the doctors. We never go to clinic and ask whether you are contract doctors or permanent doctors. We never ask.
Never ask.
Yeah, what we expect is that fulfill your duties and obligation as you're supposed to, whoever you are. So in that sense, we never know that you have been treated unequal. So I believe that you deserve fairness and just treatment from the government as well. Thank you.
Maybe I have a question, Dr. Mustafa. To add on to this is that, do you think the real reason why the government is so slow or hesitant in having contract doctors put on the PE, permanent establishment, is because of money, finances?
To be honest, Dato', in terms of financial, I don't think if you were to convert contract doctors to permanent posts, it will cost you absolutely zero because you are still paying our pay and also KWSP. We're not asking for pension, even so, we're just asking to change our terms into permanent. So I believe if we were to give it the same rights as our permanent, if we were to be given permanent posts, it takes about zero ringgit just to convert our status.
Oh, but then as a permanent doctor, you'll be entitled to further training courses and
Yep.
there's a cost factor there, isn't it?
But in terms of that cost factor, because everybody has to go through interviews, selection process, and everything. So it doesn't mean that once you are permanent, you will get permanent post. But it is a key factor, a gateway for all of us to specialize in our field.
Okay. Simon, is there any questions you'd like to raise?
Yes, Dr. Dr. Mustafa, under this contract system, what is the motivation for the government to keep you under this contract system? When you say the financial implication is especially on the remuneration is not different. Secondly, is there under the contract system, do you get your salary hikes annually, like any other permanent doctors?
Okay, for the salary hike, we started off with 2,947 as our basic pay, and an increment of 200 every year. But with the new ruling of giving UD43, it's actually not much difference from our increment. So for example, once you have finished your contract within 5 years, so your pay will be roughly about 3,500. Whereas if you are promoted to UD43, your pay is substantially about 3,600. So there is not much increment between contract UD41 and contract UD43, let alone contract UD43 is given without permanent perks. So for me, if you ask me what is the motivation for the government to keep us contract, is actually, to be honest, I think it's cheap labor. Because to pay out the salary for 41 is not as much as you have to pay for a 44 or 48 grade scheme.
Oh. So it comes down to dollars and cents.
We are still carrying the same burden as permanent, same responsibility, same on call, same working hours, same long working hours. So for myself, it's not fair for us to be treated like this with a different payment and same responsibility as our permanent colleagues.
Dr. Mustafa, Dr. Mustafa, satu soalan. Dalam tuntutan Dr. Mustafa ni, adakah Dr. Mustafa meminta supaya mengekalkan skim yang sedia ada, termasuk skim K2SP atau meminta untuk skim pension? Just untuk
right. Yeah. So in our memorandum, we have mentioned that kita nak permanent with KWSP. Without pension, tak nak bagi pension tak apa, tapi kita nak KWSP and also nak permanent post, because the permanent is the gateway for specialization. Unless the government decided to change their scheme or rulings, then that will be the case for today.
And why our Prime Minister saying that if the government want to absorb all of you, they have to spend about 2 billion?
I'm not sure, because the calculation is being done by the Bahagian Sumber Manusia of KKM. So they haven't disclosed any information, but from the meeting of the Maha Menteri, they mentioned that it requires 2 billion, which I'm not sure where they get the calculation from. Kalau you kira pension, yes, probably will amount up to 1 billion, 2 billion. Tapi tanpa pension, it's actually with KWSP, you're not spending more dime than you are right now.
And there's also the issue of security of tenure, that you have secure job security, which of course will ultimately affects you personally. And I think at the moment, it is the morale is very low, honorable commissioners, and I'm very, very concerned, and that's why I've taken an interest. They are literally risking their lives for us, and if we can't even give them some hope that some positive changes will happen, then it's very difficult. And as I say, they're resigning today. I just read about someone else, 24 hours resignation and out. They can't take it. So I think we need to act quite quickly, if possible, of course, subject to timing. But the most immediate issue is what's happening on Monday.
Right. I think one point of interest, Dr. Ambiga, is what Dr. Mustafa has just mentioned, saying that permanency is gateway to specialization.
Yes.
I think by not making them as permanent doctors, I think the government is actually shooting themselves in the foot. Because we all strive for excellence, right? And you want people to get better and better trained and so on. So here you got a big pool of human resource, 23,000 people who cannot further their training because they are not permanent doctors. And then after that, the government will say, oh, we don't have this expert, we don't have that expert. How do they then train these people? It's, I don't know what the policy.
Short-sighted. It's very short-sighted. And I think, you see, the public healthcare system will lose them. They will go to private. You can't blame them. And but it is the public healthcare that has always been the mainstay of medical care in this country for years. We have a very, very good system that we can be proud of. So we shouldn't be undermining the public health system.
Right.
And I think that's where the public interest comes in.
Yeah. Right. In fact, Malaysia can boast of a fairly good public health system over the years.
Very good.
We can boast of many other things, a good legal system over the years.
Absolutely.
I think that we're actually all taken a downturn. Anyhow. So, okay, I think the point has been made. Unless there's something else, then otherwise we can call this a close. And importantly, Simon, are you in touch with a point person from the doctors so that we can carry this conversation on?
Yes, Doctor, we have the contact person.
Whom are you in touch with?
Audi.
Dr. Audi, okay.
Okay.
All right.
Dr. Ma, just
he's not a doctor, he's a lawyer actually.
Just to clarify, I'm not a doctor.
Oh, you're a lawyer. Okay, all right.
We're all spokespersons.
Yes.
Dr. Ma,
Dr.
I
Nick,
just want to double check. It is stated in the memorandum that you said you have no idea of criteria lantikan tetap. Is it correct? You have no idea of the ciri-ciri itself?
We do have the criteria for pembelian tetap, but the problem is I think the criteria is too general, too vague, and everybody isn't. If they were to follow what they wrote, then everybody is entitled to become permanent. So the question will be, why aren't we permanent now?
Yeah, it's not transparent maybe, yeah.
May I add on that? Last few weeks, there are someone who are quit. They also got the entitled for permanentship, which is so weird because for those still in KKM didn't get the permanent, but those who are quit also got the permanent. So the criteria itself didn't really transparent because how come for those who are already quit get the permanent job? You got what I mean?
Yeah.
Dato', I have one question just to check with the doctors. Obviously, they don't have a union of sorts. So I'm just wondering how many times have these contractors, how do they gather themselves and how many times they have interacted with the minister or the DG of Health or the HR division? How is the treatment? Do they get open access to them or is it quite difficult in the past 3 or 4 years? Thank you.
This is the first time contract doctors doing a strike and moving forward without our association behind. We did engage with our DG, the president of MMC, the HR of Bahagian Semua Manusia. We did send them a memorandum and an open letter, but until today they haven't responded. Only SPA has responded to us and stating that this is the fault of KKM not addressing this issue, and KKM not requesting for permanent posts from JPA itself.
So they have not invited any of you to come to the table to discuss or maybe even share with you the reasons behind it. So we don't even know the reasons if they're whatever they are. They could be valid, but we don't know them. Okay, thank you.
The only engagement they have done is with MME before.
And we didn't know the outcome.
Sorry, this issue of contract doctors is only limited to medical doctors?
It's actually throughout the healthcare.
Including
nurses, MAs, dentists, pharmacists.
Oh.
The first casualty was...
Dr. Chia, can I just ask you, you were in service before, you're a dentist, you were in service, what kind of problems did you have? Were you, is that why you joined SWACAM?
I was in service for my compulsory, for my first year only. After that, I left already. So I never had to endure whatever.
Contract doctor. Okay.
Actually, there was a permanent position, but I left. I left after a year. I think this is more
maybe
recent.
It's recent.
But is this
maybe
problem,
we can work with SWACAM.
but Dr. Mustafa, is this problem more acute for medical doctors as opposed to, say, pharmacists and dentists and all the other health providers?
I think this issue is for all the healthcare workers.
Oh.
We are focusing, we are actually making our doctor as a precedent case. So if we are able to push for permanent, so we will try to help out our nurses and other colleagues who are contract as well, because we believe everybody has played a very important part, especially during this pandemic.
No, my question was whether the problem faced by contract doctors is more medical doctors as opposed to other branches.
Yes, more medical doctors.
Okay, I think unless there's something else anybody wants to say, Dato' Ambiga, any last words before we
No,
close this meeting?
just to thank the commissioners, honorable commissioners, very, very much for doing this at short notice. But I think it's an issue that is vital to the healthcare system in this country. And they have tried reaching out and they haven't been successful. I think this may be one of the first sessions we've ever had where people are, asking them questions and interested in hearing what their issues are. So I'd like to thank on behalf of all the doctors, thank you all very much for taking an interest in this issue. And we hope that after Monday, we can perhaps put forward our case for an inquiry before SWACAM. Thank you very, very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you all the doctors for all your good work.
Yes.
Like who was saying just now, Dr. Nick says, when you go to a hospital, you never ask the doctor, hey, are you temporary or permanent? Nobody, it never crosses your mind, you expect the best from a doctor. Thank you. But can I just say this to my colleagues and staff from SWACAM? After everybody else has left this room, can you just please stay on so we have a quick sum up of what has been discussed? Boleh?
Sure, Dato', can.
Okay.
Sure, Dato', sure.
Bye-bye, everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Dato' Ambiga. Bye-bye.
And thank you to the Secretariat. Thank you very much, Simon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dato'. Thank you.
Yeah, we're having our own meeting.
Let me know, Simon, when everybody else is left.
Okay, Dato'. 2, 3 more.
Just to take advantage of the timing instead of having another to rearrange and reschedule so many meetings.